everybody! We're here today to share our 2021
goals,
video.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
I don't know how successful we were at 2020 because we
I failed, like
haven't
totally.
had a chance to review it. But
I have, and
I'm sure I failed in some of them, and then I did okay.
I got like 2 out of like 10 or whatever that was.
Who knows? But new year, new goals, so let's get excited. I think you are gonna get the ball rolling. Yes.
That's right. Yes, I am gonna get the ball rolling. Now, there's gonna be a video that's gonna come out right after this one about our 12 books to read in 2021. That is roughly the first TBR of any sort that I officially sort of put my foot down on and said, all right, we're gonna try this again. So you're gonna see a lot of books that I said I would read but totally did not read. Again, an allusion to last year's sort of failed challenge. Again, on the one hand, 2020 was a pretty wonky year, to say the least. Understatement literally of the last, you know, like whatever, 360 plus days. But there's that, so, which sort of segues for me personally to like my second goal of the year, which is to continue my DNF or die sort of thing.
Year. What is it? 3, 4?
Yeah, and here's how we sort of got away with like last year's DNF or die kind of thing and ended up still with a giant pile of books. You can't DNF if you didn't start, which is a DNS technically. So I will start them, and then when I do, I will drop them. If I did not think that they are a book for me. That'll make her happy, that'll clear up space, and even if I did manage to just sort of cull sort of like a bunch of books, and I guess that sort of is the one of the few goals that I did last year, I want to say.
Yeah.
Narrowing it down to just the books that you're like, you know what, I really got to get around to these, and then having a clear DNF or die pile. Where you're not one of those things where I really got to keep you on my shelf for whatever sensible reasons, versus you're like, I don't know what you are, but let's figure that out. But I have to start you. So I'm gonna have, I want to say every month I am gonna have 5 books on a DNF or die pile.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. Which means by the end of the year, I'll have 60 books that I would have hopefully read or chucked out the window. So there's that.
Literally chucked out the window, mind you.
Well, not yet, because obviously like littering and, you know, basic social decency, but theoretically and metaphorically,
check out the window.
Fair.
Gotcha. Okay, my first 2 goals also tie in together, I guess, so works out. The first one is just my usual read 150 books. That's always my Goodreads challenge. It has been my Goodreads challenge since 2017. That's a pretty manageable number for me for the most part, so that's the main goal. And then in tandem with that, last year I said I was going to try to whittle down my TBR. The problem was, because of whatever 2020 had, the spirit of 2020 that is, I just did a lot of stress book shopping. So
here we go.
Even though I did read a lot off my TBR, I also acquired a lot for my TBR. So this year we're going to go back to the goal of like paring down the TBR, except we're going to make it at a more reasonable goal of like paring it down to 100 books, which in theory, if the numbers are what they are, and if I computed correctly, it is doable for me because it's lower than 150 books.
Fair.
So we shall see how that goes. Wish me luck.
Well, I was gonna put 150 books as well, because I did have 150 books due for like last year, and I did it because of the 20 bajillion graphic novels that were sort of magically available on Kindle Unlimited and Comixology Unlimited. So there was that. However, Alexa had this thing where I want to feel like an overachiever by over exceeding my goals. So my original goals were 130, and I failed that one in 2019, I want to say. So there's that. Keep it at 130 for this year. It's sort of doable, hopefully.
I think so.
You never know. Comixology Unlimited.
Dawn of X alone.
Oh boy, Dawn of X alone. Others are
and whatever the new.
And listen, Dawn of X stopped at volume 10 in 2020. They're gonna release all 4 volumes in 20. So that's like 4 out of. That's 4 already. So you know what?
That's what I'm saying.
It's totally gonna happen, and I can read that in a day. Anyway, next piece, really big. I feel is super important because when I watched Stranger Things for the first time, for those of you who haven't watched Stranger Things, it's sort of about a bunch of kids who stumble onto some Stranger Things.
See what you did there.
I mean, where's the lie? Whilst in the middle of their everyday lives, and their everyday lives involve Dungeons and Dragons. And I thought to myself, oh, this reminded me of the childhood that I kind of always wanted, because I didn't have that kind of friend group. And since I was the oldest of my sort of like siblings area, none of them could sort of like play, I guess, until years later when, you know, other things had sort of taken precedence in my life. So this year's, I just want to game some more. So I'm in a couple of D&D games right now, but I want to game with the OG folks that I started gaming with, which are Alexa's friends that are now my friends too. So I want to do that. We want to do tabletop games a bit more. We just recently got into Villainous. which is a Disney-themed sort of like board game type deal where you play a bunch of villains and everybody has their own closed little world, but then fate always intervenes in the form of heroes and their pesky little needs to be all good and fight for justice and all that crap. And sometimes you're responsible for sending heroes the way of your other fellow villains so that you get to your goals faster. And that's going to be something fun to do. And I would like to sort of game more in that area. Maybe spend a little less on Magic the Gathering. I mean, there aren't that many new expansions that are coming out this year that we like so far. But
by we, he means he.
By we, I mean me. On that note, I want this to be sort of like a year of just collaborative gaming and just all around sort of fun.
That'll be fun. Mine are still reading related things. So last year I was supposed to participate in Classics Community, which I did sort of. I ended up reading 3 out of the 12 that I ambitiously set for myself. Though to be fair, one of the books I read was Les Miserables, and that's like a 1,000-page commitment right there. So I'm gonna give myself a little extra credit for that. But this year I decided I wanted to read more classics along with my cousin Carmela, so we're both reading a set number. For me it's 6 because I think that's doable, and I do have a bunch that are on my TBR that I would like to get to. The other thing that I would like to tackle is sort of a two-parter. I want to watch a couple of animes and read and finish a couple of manga series. So I've chosen 5 in each of those categories. I'm very excited about all of them because they either come highly recommended, they were series I was already reading and need to just catch up on, or you know, I'm just interested in finishing. So I'm really excited about that. If you guys want to see it, you'll see it at some point on the channel, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm very excited about that goal. Just because, you know, I didn't actually get to read any manga last year, which is a sad thing. I watched a lot of anime.
Right.
I'll give myself credit for that. But like, the manga reading side of things sort of fell to the wayside for me in 2020. Would like to pick up the habit again in 2021.
There you go. Which leads me to my final bookish goal, I want to say, which is I have set some goals last year that were meant to be achieved this year in the way of my writing. And last year I was able to write this little trophy to my attempts at being creative, which is Cold Snap. I now have, I believe, everything I need to write the second book. More importantly, there are a couple of other titles that, if you go to blueroomprojects.com, we have said that are going to come out mid-2021 and end of 2021. I am actually pretty confident that at the very least the Kindle Unlimited versions, right, are going to come out pretty soon, because the art does take a while and my brother does need the time to get all of that genius to percolate and come up with something awesome. Which means if all I need is like a book cover, we can definitely release in June and December if I'm able to sort of get my act together, which I sort of am. Like, it's been a couple of days and change since the new year, and I have sort of started working, and so I will be, hopefully, where I'm sitting now, 360 plus days later, saying, yep, totally released them books, totally out on Kindle Unlimited right now, and hopefully holding a more than just one hard copy of those particular sort of pieces, because I have never considered myself a fully creative person until just a few years ago and decided, you know, I think this is who and what I am, regardless of what my day job is or whatever. And that's just part of just being me and just being creative. And I'll quote the great Stephen King, if you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write. And with them reading goals we got right now, we just might do the writing thing once again for 2021.
And again, when he says we, he means he.
Which is half true, because this is my #1 reader and my #1 ideal reader. And also kind of my editor in life. And who better to edit a husband than a wife, really, if you think about it. There's very few people, if the dynamic's good, which arguably it is. So by we, I mean we.
This is the last goal.
This is the last goal. Official
last goal of the video. So I somehow inadvertently find myself belonging to 4 different book clubs for 2021. So the first one is the one I do with my sisters and my cousin. We unofficially started it in the middle of 2020. Somehow successfully muddled our way through it.
Super cool how they stick to it.
Which is odd because only 2 of us are actually readers and the other 2 are like more casual readers. And we decided that we were all going to try to read books again together this year. It's fun because we each get a turn to pick and we all like very different things. Like, we do have common ground somewhere, but for the most part, there's definitely a divide in tastes when it comes to the books we like reading.
Yeah, it's a very small Venn diagram.
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I'm also still doing the Paranormal Book Club with my friends DJ from This Life in Fiction, Rachel from Hello Chelly, and Kristen from Merrily Kristen. We usually pick a series starter from an older YA paranormal or fantasy series, and we try to tackle that together and see how we feel about it. So it's a quarterly book club, unofficially. So we have 4 titles in mind for this year. Very exciting. We haven't finalized, so I can't say what they are, but that's one of them.
I'm excited to hear all of the screaming.
And then I also am going to be joining in on the Historical Hellions book club, which is hosted by Jess from Peace Love Books and Samantha from Books and Samantha. And they are planning to read historical romances that are a little bit older, so 1 a month. Totally doable. I'm in a very big historical romance mood at the moment after binging the Bridgerton series with my sister. So we're just gonna like participate in that. But last, certainly not least, and probably our biggest surprise announcement is that we're gonna do a Fandom Buzz book club.
That's right.
Mostly just for me and Maggie, for the sake of just calling it a book club. But
yeah.
If you guys feel like you want to read along with any of our choices, feel free to do so.
Oh no, absolutely. In fact, this might even be a good time to sort of like launch the Fandom Buzz, sort of like either blog or some kind of page, just so that you guys can sort of like follow and go, this is what's going on, etc., etc.
We'll see about that.
We'll see how that works.
The goal is to read or reread
the following
and complete, in some cases, the following series. And we'll also be doing a dedicated episode, I think. I don't know yet. We haven't decided yet if we're doing it by book or by series, but there will be some episode of Fandom Buzz centered around that series.
And since the very sort of ethos of Fandom Buzz is just literally path of least resistance, like this is not something that we want to be a chore for. In fact, if any of you
keeping it real casual.
and for those of you who actually have heard our sort of like season 1 finale, like just a few days ago, Fandom Buzz is really just more a journal of the things that we love the most, and more importantly, things that we love together.
Yes.
So this book club is really sort of like a reread book club, half mostly, but then there's the other half of which where we're like, these series we haven't read all, so you know, not
some
all
of them we haven't read all of them yet.
So to have that sort of dynamic, so whether we work that into sort of like the bookish breakdown kind of like subcategory, why not?
We'll figure it out.
I mean, the breakdown is the bookish thing, not so much the book itself being broken down. And if it made you break down, which, hey, let's face it, a lot of these books have given us strong feelings, it's gonna work. Are we gonna run through?
Yes, we'll run through.
So here's
1, 2, 3, 4, 7. There are seven series that we have the intention of hopefully reading throughout 2021.
That's right.
The first one we'll be tackling is probably arguably the chunkiest books.
The chunkiest,
all the things that
chunkiest books, and the ones we have not revisited in literally
very long
ages.
time.
I don't think we've even talked about them much or at all since we started like
because it's been a long time
together.
And that is The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. Starts with Aragon, continues with Eldest. The third book is Brisingaur, and then the fourth book is Inheritance. And there is also a short story collection called The Fork, the Witch, and the Worm,
which I haven't read.
I haven't read that.
There
as well.
you go.
I haven't personally revisited this series since I want to say whenever Inheritance came out, which I was here, so it has to be like 2010, 2011.
Thereabouts. I may have read Inheritance maybe a couple of times, but outside of that, nothing.
But it's been so long. I know that we both have a deep love for this series because it starts off with a young farm boy named Aragon. He finds an egg, a dragon egg,
like in the
forest, like nearby, and the egg hatches for him.
In a world where dragon riders are a thing of the past, there is a tyrannical king, the only dragon rider left, and his dragon is big, black, and insane. Like the onyx scales on this particular terrible like creature. There are no dragon riders anymore. They were all like murdered or dead. And then one day the egg hatches, and he's like the first dragon rider effectively in like hundreds of years.
So we're very excited to revisit this since it's been forever. The next series is one I haven't finished. I'm not sure if Macky has finished. I think he has.
I have. I totally have.
And that's the Old Kingdom series, which is by Garth
gorgeous covers.
Begins with Sabriel, continues with Lyrael, continues with Aborzen, goes into Clariel, then Golden Hand, and then there are 2 short stories.
There's 2 short stories.
Either way, I have only ever read the first trilogy. I haven't actually read anything past that, so for me, some of these books are going to be a complete new experience.
What makes this particular series fresh to this day, and again, this is a personal thing, if you guys know anything else that's sort of similar like this, that takes necromancy to this level, holler at us in the comments because I want to know if there's anything else out there. Imagine a world where there is a wall that separates sort of like the civilized sort of world. You know, there's like technology, there's cars. It's almost kind of like set in like the 40s type deal. So not even steampunk, because there's nothing that outrageous in terms of machinery. It's just past that wall, all technology and anything created by technology sort of breaks down. So radio technology doesn't work. Any clothes that are made by machines just sort of starts to unravel. Paper, the same thing. Because past that wall is just magic. Tons and tons of magic. More important than that is, in that world, the dead don't always stay dead. Hence the need for abhorzens, a line of, I want to say, good necromancers, just to like give people a frame of mind. Because they have power over the dead the way necromancers do, but their job is to make sure that the dead stay dead. And they use 7 bells named after, you know, that they have different names, right? And each bell makes the dead do something. And they want to make sure that with the use of these bells, whenever the dead would rise, they would send the dead back through the precincts of death all the way to the beyond. And I'm just like, good necromancers that keep the dead dead. That's awesome. I don't know anything else that's like that. And if there is, holler at us. I just want to know. So that's why I want to do this. The books after these are like sort of like, one of them is a prequel, the other one's like after the actual events of the trilogy. So it's just great all around. And it's just beautiful. And these covers are gorgeous.
Also, it's extra special because the only reason I ever read the first trilogy was because Macky gifted it to me.
That's true.
Alright, the next 5 series are all by the same author. Some of them we've completed, some of them we haven't completed.
God, have we not.
But we are determined. We are determined to make this the year where we read Uncle Rick.
That's right.
Like really actually read Uncle Rick.
That is correct.
First, obviously, we'll be tackling a reread of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series.
Percy Jackson sounds like an 80s Motown band. These are the Percy Jacksons!
Anyway, this one is made up of The Lightning Thief, The Sea of Monsters, The Titan's Curse, The Battle of the Labyrinth, and The Last Olympian. We read these ages ago. I have actually reread the series, and so have you. This
when we do this again, because I reread that like a couple of years ago. This is going to be probably my 5th or 6th reread.
It's so good.
And it's still good.
It's funny actually, because this one, I told him to read it, so it's the opposite.
So I brought Aragon to her and Sabriel. And then Alexa was like, you have to read like Percy Jackson.
Shout out to my cousin Carmela, because she's the one who got me into it.
And then when I got into it, I'm like, hey, we're buying Kane. We're buying everything. And that's usually, here's the thing. This is one of this. So Alexa and I have this weird pattern where I give her something and she's suddenly a larger fan of it out of nowhere. This is one of the rare times when it's the exact opposite, where suddenly I'm the one collecting all of the books and I was all of these things, and I'm the one who's read more, which technically I still have.
So this 5-book series is about Percy Jackson. In the first book, he discovers that he is in fact a demigod,
but whose son he is from which the gods.
He has to discover whose son he is. He ends up going to a camp called Camp Half-Blood because there are mythical monsters trying to kill him.
Which is the norm when you're a demigod. They just want to eat you. And from there, like, his fate in this particular time of history sort of unfolds, and a prophecy is spoken. And now, cool things happen.
Which leads to, technically, since we're going in chronological order, there's going to be a slight gap between 2 series that are interconnected. So this series is the Kane Chronicles. It's a trilogy, and it is actually inspired by Egyptian mythology, whereas Percy is inspired by Greek. So it's the Red Pyramid, the Throne of Fire, and the Serpent's Secret. And this is about 2 siblings.
Yeah, Sadie and Carter Kane. They're descended from the pharaohs of old, and that's like super cool.
I have not reread the series actually in forever.
I kind of have. So it's such a fresh take on Egyptian mythology, and for you to like discover that I am descended from like these particular gods, and whereas you've got Camp Half-Blood in like Long Island, I want to say, you've got the House of Life in Brooklyn, and that's where it all starts. And
it was a really good series too.
And it's again renegade gods doing renegade god things, and
I like the fact that this one is siblings.
Oh yeah, it's definitely siblings, and the lore is just so exquisite. The way one might even think that I actually like the lore better over here, if not necessarily the story.
I will reserve judgment until I've reread and read everything.
In which case, tune in to Fandom Buzz's bookish breakdowns.
What we are failing to mention is that some of these actually also have short stories attached to them. We'll be reading them accordingly. Right. They kind of cross over, so you kind of can't match them with a particular series.
Exactly. Percy Jackson does have crossovers with the Kane Chronicles, which is insane. In which case... The
next series this is my favorite of all the things I've read by Riordan. It is the Heroes of Olympus series. Also 5 books. It's The Lost Hero, The Son of Neptune, The Mark of Athena, The House of Hades, and The Blood of Olympus. this series is so good. Okay.
Set a few years, or a couple of years, after the events of the first Percy Jackson
yep.
cycle, involving a new bunch of demigods that you wouldn't even know what the heck is going on anymore.
This one is heavier on the prophecy aspect.
It's heavier on the prophecy aspect, and it involves the larger world. It unveils a lot of things that are alluded to in the first 5 books, and we are not going to spoil anything further.
It's so good,
but we will. But again, we will spoil the frack out of it on Fandom Buzz. You will. There's like it's just gonna be spoilers all the way through. So
and now we've come to the 2 Riordan series that neither of us has finished, unfortunately.
Oh boy, no.
Okay.
Let's start with Magnus Chase.
We're gonna start with the trilogy. It's Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard. It's the Sword of Summer, the Hammer of Thor, and the Ship of the Dead.
Right.
So just a trilogy, and it's this time centered around a character named Magnus Chase. He lives in Boston.
Just think about it this way: there's only really so few ways you get to Asgard, and he takes one of them ways.
Mm-hmm.
But from there, hilarity ensues. I have read, I think, actually up to
You've
the
read
second book.
2, yeah.
But
I've only read 1.
Yeah, but I have not read sort of that last one. So this is a completely different sort of like thing altogether. If any of you actually played Age of Mythology, like on the PC back in the day, it really does feel like that. It's like you've got the Greeks building certain ways, and you've got the Egyptians building, and then these are the Norse ones, and this is Norse mythology all the way through. And Magnus,
there is a slight crossover,
which makes you blow your frigging mind. So we will not spoil that, but we will talk about it at length with all of my crackpot theories.
Fandom Buzz.
Once again, I am hoping so hard that my theories are correct, because if they are, then Rick Riordan has created himself a multiverse that is not really a multiverse, and I will end the vague spoilers there. In which, either way, my mind will just...
It's actually nice because the way it's divided, we're actually rounding it up by reading another Greek mythology book.
Which, again, a fun recapitulation in the form of the Trials of Apollo.
And it starts with the Hidden Oracle, the Dark Prophecy, the Burning Maze, the Tyrant's Tomb, and the Tower of Nero. I have only ever read the first book in the series. You might have gotten farther than me, maybe.
I might have probably gotten like a little bit into the Dark Prophecy, but either way.
Tell them the premise though, because that's what makes this book so entertaining.
Because of
certain things,
certain circumstances, Apollo has fallen out of favor with Zeus.
Mm-hmm. And what is the consequence of this?
A redo of something that Zeus actually, I think he might have already done to Apollo in actual Greek mythology, which is to have him be mortal and complete certain trials so that he may regain back his godhood. Yep. Cut to Apollo being trapped in the body of a young teenager named Lester Papadopoulos, getting sort of like attacked on the street, because that's what sort of like monsters do in this world. When they see someone that's not quite human, we'll just eat it.
Yep.
Which eventually leads him to Camp Half-Blood one way or the other, in which case a new prophecy is released. Alexa and I do remember this one thing from the first book
blew my mind,
where we did not think Uncle Rick had it in him to give us another zinger in the Percy Jackson thing, because again, but then we haven't read Magnus Chase, so maybe there's one thing there, we don't know. I've read Kane Chronicles, it was great, but it didn't really give us that, oh my god, you did that crazy thing in the Heroes of Olympus thing, which was super awesome. We thought the Heroes of Olympus was the pinnacle of the curveballs.
We thought wrong.
Oy, gewalt. So
yeah, so the first book was a pleasant surprise when we read it. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing how everything else pans out.
I have like a god niece who just like posted, I'm reading Tower of Nero.
Like, we're both like...
and she's like 12, and I'm just like, like I'm so behind. But then again,
we'll catch up though, we'll catch up.
We will.
So those are the 7 series we're tackling for the Fandom Buzz book club. That's the order we'll be tackling them in as well. We didn't really do any sort of months for them because we're just like...
But when we do, we're gonna
we'll just keep you guys posted on when we start them,
I think it's gonna be
how far along we're going. So again, like Macky's suggesting, we might have to do like a separate blog space for them. So we'll see how that goes.
We'll figure that out.
Anyway, those are all our goals for the year 2021. We hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you want to share your reading goals or, you know, anything you have as a goal for 2021, please feel free to do it in the comments.
Absolutely.
We love giving encouragement where we can. And plus, it's fun if you want to read any of the things that we have mentioned in this video too, or read along with us.
Absolutely.
Anyway, we'll see you guys with a new video soon. Bye!